Hello, true believers. Time to do another video. I'm going to take a break from the YouTube community vlogging drama and going to another different drama, which is the police gone wild here in the Philippines. And this is a big deal because just like me and just like this person over here, just like this Korean businessman, I've been meaning to do this video for a while, so I decided to finally do it today. If you live here in the Philippines as long as I have, the police are definitely a factor that you have to consider when you're living here. And of course, if you're just living here like a bum, like a squatter, then the police are not really somebody you have to deal with because, as you could see, they deal with mostly high value targets like this businessman. And what the police are doing is I don't want to humanize it or demean their crime, but they're acting like as tax collectors is probably the best way to put it. Because this businessman has been doing business here in the Philippines for 10 years and he's getting all the benefits as a Korean. And why would someone from Korea come here to the Philippines and do business? I mean, there's several reasons. There's probably because opportunities, because there's a lot of Koreans over here, and there are a lot of Korean businesses over here, so they have to cater to a lot of Korean styles, and this is the business that he deals with. He's not dealing with other Filipinos. Maybe he's dealing with them in a management situation, but not where he's actually working with them. The Filipinos are actually, I assume, would be working for him. And one of the reasons why his business is probably so successful, I would guess, is because he's not doing business with other Filipinos directly. He's doing business with other Koreans because of they like it here. And there's several reasons why they like it here. I've already kind of went into it. The four, what was it? I'll go into it right now. Four reasons why people like it here is number one is the hospitality. I know it's a cliche, but people say, "Oh, the Filipinos here will give you the shirt off their backs," like I said in the previous vlog, and that we're all over the hospitality industry, literally, not all, hospitality, hospitals, hotels, cruise ships, any kind of that kind of industry, tourism industry. Filipinos are pretty much infiltrated in there. I'm not saying that we live to serve, but I guess if we're pretty much we're pretty much the go-to country or go-to race when it comes to the hospitality tourism industry. So that's number four. Number three is the food. I don't mean specifically the food itself, but the food experience. Just as long as you have food over here, then there's always people that will eat with you, and nothing tastes better than if you take the same food, one's food, it's same exact food, same ingredients, same the way it's same way that it's prepared. One you eat by yourself, and one you eat with a bunch of Filipinos. Which one's gonna taste better? The one that's gonna the one with a bunch of Filipinos is going to taste better because you'll never see people enjoy food so much as when it comes to Filipinos. And in return, you're kind of infected by the same feeling that oh, this food must be the greatest thing in the world because it's the greatest thing in the world for you. It's the greatest food in the world for you for different reasons that it is as it is for them. But regardless, the effect is just the same. So food experience. Okay, it's been a while since I've done this one. Number two is that the no shirt, no shoes, no money, no electricity, no job, no insurance, no nothing. You get the idea, etc. No, etc. No problem. You'll see the most laid back, most kick back people here in the world. It's like, yes, I have all these problems, but if you want, but the Filipinos only require two things to be happy. Number one is food for the day, and number two, something over their heads to keep the hot sun and wet rain off their heads. So if they have those two, if you just check that off, check. Number one, I got food for the day. Number two, check. I've got somewhere. I've got even a banana, a big old banana leaf to keep the rain and the sun off my head. Then I'm peachy king. So those are two. So that's pretty much the stress-free lifestyle versus like Japan or in the West or in Europe, and where they're so wound up. They're just they're just a road rage bomb ready to happen. So it's kind of spreading over here. Also, the road rage, the Western stress, it's kind of infecting. Also, it's kind of spreading also. But that's in the major cities. But if you go outside the provinces, it's more laid back. But you could probably say that about anywhere, even in America. But the point is, those are the top three reasons. Number four is hospitality. Number three is the food experience, not food itself, but food experience. Number two is the stress free, no shirt, no shoes, no money, no love life, no problem. But the number one reason why Koreans like coming over here is because, like with a lot of first world countries, Korea has become modernized. Korea has become a first world industry themselves. Also, they're modernized also. So what happens when a country becomes modernized is they all of a sudden they have a disconnect with each other. Everybody is like an American culture keeping up with the Joneses over here, which over here that doesn't exist because everybody over here is poor. There's nothing to keep up with. The only thing they have is their face. So the number one reason why these people are over here is they want to socially connect with somebody. They want to socially, and that, especially if you have a choice and if you have money like this person, if you're a good businessman like this person, he wants to translate it to. So if he's a successful Korean businessman, that means also that he's got money. And over here, if you have money, you have no problem connecting. Especially with people, especially if you have money, you can control who the people you want to connect with. And in his case, or probably in my case, it would be with young, pretty girls. Now, you can make the argument that what about old, ugly girls? Then I like young, pretty, sexy girls. And then versus what? Old, fat, ugly, with nasty personality Americans? So you put that together. If you got money, you can pretty much, if you want a young, pretty, sexy with a pleasing personality because you have money, then you're pretty much set. But of course, all those things come at a price. Okay, it's there's no such thing as, what is it, free pussy. It's all pay for play. And what you have to do is take that information and you have to manage it. And if you don't manage it properly, you're gonna end up paying with your life, like this person over here. So when it comes to pay for play, you're gonna eventually, if you live here long enough, you're always flipping a coin. You're always flipping a coin. You're always counting your blessings, always relying on your luck until one day that flip of the coin flips against you, just like in that movie No Country for Old Men, where the death dealer or the death giver or death himself is saying he flips a coin and then calls it, and then if it's the right call, you live. If it's the wrong call, you pay for it with your life. And in this situation, he pays with his life. So I'm going to get into detail later about what happened to this person, but I just want to give the overview or the take home message first so I don't forget. So the tax collectors that are coming in for your pay for play comes in many forms. And in this situation, he comes in the form of the police, the Philippine National Police. So he's here to connect. Well, what do you mean by connect? Well, he, like many other people, probably most likely has mistresses. Yeah, of course, he has a wife. When it comes to Asian cultures, mistresses, or how I like to call it, friends with mutual benefits, are popular over here, or common. I don't want to say popular, or common, or tradition. And that's hard or difficult or when it comes to a first world country, that's impossible to do. Getting a young, beautiful, sexy, pleasing personality mistress is almost impossible to do. If that was possible in Korea or Western countries, then there would be no reason why anybody would come over here. So that's probably why he's here. And so not only him, but other Koreans also. That's just a simple fact. I'm not judging it one way or another. I mean, you could probably say the same thing about me. Not saying that I have mistresses or I have friends with benefits, but if I did, I would say probably I'd have like two and a half. I would think. And you're probably saying, yeah, yeah, you do. We saw two videos of you going out to meet them, and one you was coming. Yeah, you could say that, but you didn't see it. You didn't see any proof of it. And even if I did, the natural thing to do was to deny it, deny it, deny it. I mean, we all know, not just me. I was watching, was it 2 weeks ago or last week, Bernie Madoff died. And I was like looking at his history and how he came out with his mistresses would come out. Even my neighbor, my neighbor's wife died. He's like 82, and then his wife died, and then what, 2 weeks later his mistress moves into the house after his wife died. It was kind of not a funny scandal. At that age you could do whatever or say the hell whatever you want, and you're pretty much old anyway, so you might as well enjoy. The only problem with the mistress that he had that moved into the house is she was like 71 years old. Yes, she was like 10 years younger. It might have been okay when he was 30 and she was like 20, but now at 80 and 70, it's just kind of maybe he he kind of maybe suffered from Prince Charles syndrome, where he to him it's kind of more important to for the company as somebody he has history with, and that's that's what you have your wife for. I mean, that's why you have this long, even though they're as you get older and they get older also, we it becomes less about the physical and more about the company, about the familiarity. So, having that someone that you could always trust and love you and unconditionally is nice to have to sleep at night. You could always have somebody young, like probably this person has, but it's just something on the side. We all know variety is a spice of life. So as Asian men like this one, that's what he's used for, and he has businesses that cater to a lot of Koreans that come here for that same reason. So let's go back to, so now that we figured out why he's here and why a lot of, and not just Koreans, even though there are a lot of them, for I always say for every one Korean, for every one Filipino that leaves the country, usually anywhere between two to a dozen Koreans replace them and come over here. There's parts of the Philippines between Korea and China has been overrun, and they, of course, they changed the landscape. It's you got a lot of Korean stores and Chinese businesses, and but the point I wanted to make is that they're overrunning the place, just like Americans, Australians, they're and the Japanese, and probably the only advantage is that they're staying here for a long time now. That they're even generations where their Koreans are having children over here, and they're probably having children outside, so they can own property now. So pretty much soon, just like the Chinese have been here for years, and they control a lot of the businesses, a lot of the industry. But they will never take over the Philippines themselves because as the Filipinos, they're gonna always outpopulate them through the birth rate. So there's always going to be more Filipinos here, no matter how many Koreans and Chinese and Japanese or Australians that come here. So he's here. And now what we have now is we got the Filipinos and we got the Koreans now. So what we want to do is after I finish that monologue, now that we established the why he's here and why he's been here for a long time, just like me, for me, like I said, I'm Filipino, so it's natural to go back to where you were born. You just have this natural affinity to where you grew up, and forget about the hard times. When you're young, you only remember, well, like, what's good about it and what's kind of the innocent wonder of what it's like growing up in Manila back in the 80s. It was dangerous, yet at the same time, I didn't feel like I was in any danger at all. I mean, there was a danger of, like, obviously getting run over, but not like the danger that it is now, or what it is now that is the Philippines, and what has caused it. You could probably make an argument that it's a lot of it has to do with social media and the internet, and then it's turning into where you've got all these, where you've got people posting things and creating envy and jealousy, and they want the same thing also. And then with this technology, I already said before that when before the internet, growing up, things were simpler. There was no cell phones, there was no internet, there was no Netflix, there was no gadgets, there's no online gaming, there's no skins, there's no none of these things existed. It's just it was much a more simpler time until technology kind of came in and pretty much ruined everything, which everything now is the culture is pretty much the internet culture now. Whatever is the internet, it infects everybody over here. So now everybody's got to have a cell phone, it's got to have data, and those things cost a lot of money. And what are you going to do if you're the police and you need not only do you need those things, but your family needs them, and your family outside needs them, because the police also are traditionally, they have other families outside, if not just an extra one or several. And those things cost a lot of money. And what are they going to do if they need the money? This is And over here, of course, there's laws, but the only law as you that they follow is the might makes right law. I have a gun, I have jails, I have even secret jails. So if I need money and I need to get money, I'll use what is at my disposal. So in this situation, we have the same thing. And what makes it interesting is it parallels what happened to me. And you can make some comparisons of how this person, what happened to this person, is similar. The police are involved in my situation, the same as involved in him. They detained him, they extorted him. Same thing with me. Extortion with me was different compared to him. With him, they tortured him and killed him to get the money out of him. But in my situation, they didn't need to torture me because they had the means and capabilities using technology to be able to get the money out of me. And I already showed you the proof of that. The cybercrime police committing cybercrime. It's the irony of it. And over here, it's not the irony. It's the might makes right. I can do it. How else am I supposed to get? Explain to me if I'm the police. Explain to me how else am I going to have an iPhone? How else am I going to have a credit card to be able to pay for those things that you have that I want? In this situation, we have this person's golf clubs. How is a police person making anywhere between 200 to 300, let's even double that, to $400 to $600 a month, to buy a set of, what is it, tailor made or Tiger Woods golf clubs? Okay, because of social media, because of the internet, I I'm the police. I'm Filipino. I want golf clubs also. Well, this person has golf clubs too. Well, then I'll take it. Well, then how will I take it? Well, if I'm the police, my job is to arrest people. I'll arrest them and take it. So that's we have to keep that in mind, because it's becoming more common, and you have to keep that in mind also, that the chances of you getting hit by this is high, even in your vacation. As you could see, I also do a video on there's those three Korean tourists. They were just here on vacation also. They were just here for the pay for play for golf, and at night drinking with wine, women, and song with ugly single moms. Then you have to keep in mind that the possibility can happen to you also. So let's go into this the details of this person. Like I said, the details is not as important. What is important is you have to understand the the big picture here. It's like we've got everybody here now is a criminal because the internet probably created this big pearl. If you read back in high school, in your high school reading, if you read the book The Pearl, the required reading, the internet created this virtual pearl now. Well, everybody is okay. I getting the pearl now, and they'll kill anybody to get this pearl, just like in the story by Steinbeck. So this person is the pearl because of the internet. You are the pearl now, and they'll kill you and they'll kill anyone to get that pearl. And that pearl in this situation is those golf clubs. So let's go into the story so that you have to keep that in mind now. If you don't, and if you're kind of going around just like me, thinking that it's not going to happen, then the odds are that it's going to happen to you. I mean, that's for Murphy's Law. If you think it's never going to happen to you, you might be above man's law, you might be above God's law, but you're definitely not above Murphy's Law. So let's go into this video and
White
let's
had
talk
been
about the
living in the
details.
Philippines for almost a decade. In October last year, Jee was taken from his home by police officers who said they were conducting an anti-drugs operation.
So this happened back in October 2016. That's 5 years ago. And the case is still ongoing, and it was it takes a long process. It could take anywhere between 5 to 10 years for a case to finally finish. The fortune, so that's why I'm counting my blessing. That my case took 2.5 years to finish, but it could have taken 5 to 10 years. And as an innocent, imagine if you're an innocent man, the law says that you're innocent until proven guilty. That's fine, but in the Philippines, you're innocent until proven guilty, but you're going to be in jail while proving your innocence, which is that means you're being punished as if you were guilty. So what's the point of being innocent if you're going to be in jail regardless whether you're innocent or not, whether you're proven innocent or not? So that's something you have to consider also. I You would say that like there's also laws here that you have a right to a speedy trial. You have a right to, but as you can see, exercising it is a different issue. Like you could be an innocent person, but if it takes 10 years or 5 years in this situation, let's say you got blamed for this person's death and you're an innocent person, you're still in jail waiting 5 years ongoing for your, and then you serve jail. What's the bright side? Well, you if you're found innocent and you spent your time in a real jail, not in detention. Let's say you could spend several years in detention. What's funny is they don't count the detention as being in prison. Yes, you are in prison, you have no freedom, but they don't count your time in detention. Let's say you spend a year in detention and you're sentenced 2 years. You still have to spend those 2 years because that 1 year in detention doesn't count. It has to be, they say it has to be in a regular prison. Detention is not a real prison. That's another funny detail because when I was in prison, those are the kind of things that was being discussed. You're waiting, you're while you're waiting for your trial to finish, it might take 2 or 3 years, and then you get sentenced 2 or 3 years, and they'll say, "Oh, while you're waiting, it doesn't count." There's actually a court that says that there's this one court that says it only counts after you've been sentenced that you can start serving. Before that, while you were while you were detained during your trial, it doesn't count. Talk about insult to injury. So what the judge was, I think his purpose was he didn't want people plea bargaining out of their to get out of jail sooner. Is what he wanted to he wanted to get rid of, like, okay, people are just plea bargaining because they've already served 10 years, but the sentence is only 5 years, so what's the point? The judge is saying, well, then I'm gonna the 5 years is in addition to the 10 years that you already did. Just make sure you're not in that position. I mean, I had to get out. So I don't mean to be sidetracked. So I wanted to talk about this one comment John Doe did, which was interesting. He said number one, what's unique about my case is number one is he said in the comments, you could probably read it. Most of you have probably read it. Is number one, he says it's weird how when you're in my case that innocence actually mattered, and number two, with all the money that involved, I wasn't a victim of an of a extra is what they call it, EJA, extrajudicial killing, or where I resisted and all of a sudden I pulled out a gun out of nowhere and they had to shoot me to tie up the loose ends. And that's a loaded comment, and my response is complex and complicated. Also, could be, but I just responded. And I just said it just wasn't my time. It made sense that there was plenty of opportunity, there was plenty of motive, there was plenty of method to get rid of me, and I could have sworn that was what was going to happen. A month later, around almost midnight, the prison guard told me to come out of the prison cell, and I didn't. Everybody looked at me and said that I was gonna die, and that was the only thing that reason why anybody would. There's no visiting. There's no other reason. Everything is closed, so there's a reason why this has to be at midnight at clandestine time, because what they're going to do to me is going to be fatal. And lo and behold, I thought that's what it was, but I played dumb and didn't know about the credit cards or my bank accounts. I just kind of we didn't know about it at the time. I didn't know anything about it at the time because it was just too soon. We weren't getting any calls. We weren't getting any statements yet that it was had been hacked and used. And I just played dumb, and I thought he was gonna size me over, see what kind of threat I was, and then kill me and plant the fact that I went for his gun. The fact that I didn't know anything about it, I just said, okay, what's this meeting about? What do you want to talk to me about? Is it illegal to take me out of prison? Absolutely. Is it illegal for Paras to the police lieutenant colonel major to talk to me? Yes. No one is allowed to talk to me without my lawyer, but to them that doesn't matter. And even the prison guard that let me out, he told me, "I'm sorry, but I was told to do this to take you out." I go, "Why am I getting out?" He told me, "I'm sorry, I'm just following orders," is what he told me. This is a guy that I saw every day at work, and he was giving me the sorriest look on his face. I thought I was gonna. I said I thought this was it. The, Seriously, when he said, "I'm sorry, but I was ordered to let you out." And then I went into the room where the lieutenant colonel was illegally took me out, and I was kind of like, okay, well, I guess if this is it, this is it. And he was reading the signs of like, hey, you stole my credit cards and you used them, and then you broke into my bank account. Uh, maybe he was maybe if I would have known that and I said, hey, let's make a deal, we'll call it even Stevens. Of course, the police is not going to buy that. If I would have came into that with that kind of attitude, the only thing that saved me was that I did not know. It was a blessing in disguise. Because if I came at this guy saying that, like, hey, I know you did that, and tried to use any leverage on him whatsoever, I would have been a dead man automatically. I needed to be play possum and play as dead as possible. I needed to make sure that I was not a threat. Okay. Once they see that you're a threat, they will eliminate the threat. I had this look on my eyes, like, hey, I'm in your, if you want to kill me, but there's no reason for you to kill me. I'm going to jail. I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. You got me. You got the raid. You raided my house. You got all this evidence. You got me on an entrapment. I was in a hotel room with those girls. So there's more reason for you to keep me alive than dead. Because if I'm dead, it can come back to you and you could lose your job. But if I'm alive and I get convicted, then you get to be the chief of the whole police of the whole entire country for getting this child rapist, child trafficker, child pornographer. in jail forever, and that would be a big feather in your hat, wouldn't it be? And that's what he's saying. Yeah, that's right. So why would I kill this person? So that's kind of the main idea over here. You have to be worth more alive to them than dead. In that situation, I did not show that I was a threat because I literally didn't know yet that what he did. But he had that look on his face. Now that I think back about it, of course he's dead now. And there's videos of him that I actually have. Thanks for the anonymous person who sent me the link of that video. It was actually from Chris from Cebu. He actually has the videos of the Pares, the colonel, lieutenant colonel, for being interviewed. So that's going to be him talking to us from the dead. So there's two people in that room, and one of us was going to die. One of us is going to be dead. And the good thing is, it wasn't my time yet. For the grace of God, he's the one who ended up dying. And what one of us wasn't going to die there and then, but one of us was going to die. And I think just a few months later, I I'm trying to figure out when he actually died, and then his replacement came. I knew he was. I knew something was up when his replacements came. You saw that in the statement. Sabarino is his name. Came to visit me while I was in prison, and he didn't say anything to me. He just wanted to take a picture of me to put in his cell phone, and I didn't really have. It wasn't my place to question why this high-ranking lieutenant colonel is over here taking my picture because I don't know who it was. And then until I saw him in the next hearing, and then that's when he said, you'll see in the court documents, that Paras won't be joining us anymore, and I'm his replacement. And what those reasons are, he's part of the dearly departed now. May your soul rot in peace, you evil bastard, is probably what I would say for what he did to me and my family. And that's why Brain Dead needs to, and then all the other bandwagon people need to pay. So he paid with his life. So he obviously was the dead person, and I wasn't. So it was just these these series of unfortunate events. So I was alive, and he was there was because so after he saw that I was no threat, and he says, okay, his intention was to keep me in jail forever, but he said he came to me and says, "Yeah, well, I'm the person in charge of your case here, so I could help you out. But what we're gonna need is, but you have to give me a reason to help you out. And not only am I gonna help you out, but we're watching your family, we're watching your kids. We know what school they go to. We talk to their teachers, we talk to the principal, we talk to the security guards. So I'm threatening you as obvious. I'm threatening that I'm gonna kill your kids if you don't help me out here." And I said, "Oh, of course, he had no intention of helping me out because his my life is not in his hands anymore. Once I get turned over to my inquest, I don't think it's not an arraignment. It's an inquest where they formally charge you what they're gonna charge you with. Then it's no longer up to him. It doesn't matter what he does or what he say, whatever influence he has. It's up to the judge still to decide whether I go free or not, whether I'm going to get in jail or not. So it doesn't matter what he said, but he was saying that I'm going to help you out, get you out of prison, and I'm not going to kill your family, but you have to give me incentive, if you have to give me a reason to. Of course, he has no intention of doing it because there's no reason to trust him whatsoever. He has no, because if I get out, the credit cards will come out. Then why is he there for? Like I said, to threaten me, to extort more money out of me. Same thing with this Korean businessman after he died. So, for example, what's parallel here is he was arrested by the police and he died, and I was arrested by the police, but I was put in prison. Now they want to get more money. Now they got initially they got money. They tortured him so they can get his ATM access. And with me, they didn't need to torture me because they already had my laptops and my phones, which was raided, which they took with me. They took from me during the entrapment, and then they got my laptops when they took it from my house, And the sad part was Hero was there, and they told him to open up the laptop, and he opened it up, and the rest is history. So they didn't need to torture me and kill me, and I have the documentation to prove that that's what they did. So they said that this person, it was a they arrested this person because it's involved in illegal drugs. Obviously, that's not true. Just like I was arrested because of human trafficking or rape. Obviously, that's not true. Same thing. Same thing with the Korean golfer tourists came here because they arrested them because of illegal gambling. Obviously, not true. They just came here to play golf and the cheap pussy. So at that incident, so after a while, he saw that I was worth more alive being convicted, so they could add a, so they can continue, so they can get the medal or they can get an award for that. Because if I was dead, then they wouldn't, and there was no problem with the credit cards because I was never going to get out of prison. So I made a deal with him. I said, okay, I will. Once you help me out and I get out, I'll pay you. I'll give you the money. And I told him the funny thing was I go, for example, I have $10,000. I can get access out of my credit cards right away. So once I get out, I'll give that to you, no problems. You help, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. We have a deal. You know, let's shake on it. I don't know if we actually shook on it or not, but I was doing my best to convince him that he was, and I actually believed that I was going to give him the money if he actually found a way to get me out of prison. So if he never got me out of prison, and he goes, no, that's not how it's gonna work. You better tell it because he. This is what he says, because you're never gonna get out of prison. So he said, that's not gonna how it's gonna work. You better tell your wife to contact me and make arrangements, and then I'll let you out of prison. And of course, I wasn't going to. I wasn't really in a position to negotiate. I was just in the position to just let me get out of this thing alive. So arguing with him or telling him, no, that's not going to work because what happens if I give you the money and if I'm still in prison, that's not really helping my cause, is it? So I just wanted to get out, the F out of there, go back into my prison and the safety of it so I don't. So then that's where so I made the arrangement. Yeah, sure, no problem. My wife will get back to you. And so the next, so he goes, okay, well then we have a deal then. So he was thinking that he was going to get more money now because there's no way that he was going to get more money if I didn't tell my wife to give him the make arrangements for them to give him money. So that's why I was alive. Simple, plain and simple. So I went back to I went back into my detention where I think I was already I can't remember if I was already the mayor there, not the mayor, mayor. It's a big, huge difference. It means you're the at the top of the food chain over there. So that's how prisons are in any, not just the Philippines, in any third world country. The prisoners are in charge, and it just so happens to be that I was the one in charge of the prison now, and everyone was pretty happy that I was in charge because I kind of kept it pretty simple and not so painful. So I told my wife the next day, instead of telling her to make arrangements for to get Paris paid his money, his $10,000, because he's got a lot of gambling debt. I assume that he's gonna, or other debts that he's managing. That I told the boss instead that, like, the Paris, the colonel visited me last night and he threatened you and uh, and the kids if I don't pay them this money. So you have to be careful. I said you have to take the kids out of school or something, or just keep them somewhere safe. And that's what the decision was, to move the kids to a different school. And we needed to get them in a new environment anyway. The place was too toxic. The idea that the he had to live with the stigma that his dad was a rapist, a child rapist, was a difficult or extreme situation for him. I'll give you an example of what that is. As you could see in the Southern Tagalog, what is it, Calabarzon academic athletic? It's a football game where he's scored the winning goal. There were several other kids that weren't even participated. They weren't even part of the team, but they were part of the football team. But they weren't part of the winning team. Got called to stage to congratulate them for winning the national or the regional, or it's kind of like the CIF tournament of the whole region. And they called these other kids, but they didn't call Hero to congratulate him for scoring the goal. And he's the one who actually saw the video where he actually scored the goal. Didn't congratulate him because then that would be congratulating a child rapist's son, and they didn't want to deal with that stigma because they have to. I mean, I get it because it's all about saving face. It's all about saving the school's face. So for those reasons, we wanted him to start in a different with a better school program also, not just that. So to for safety reasons, that's why when Brain Dead made those videos perpetuating throwing fuel to the fire, he was thinking about Sissy's safety, but he wasn't thinking about my family's safety. Not that even doing that was going to even increase their danger. They were already in a lot of danger, but I have to take into account that this police's threats are real. So I told her that. So she contacted our then first lawyer, then, which he was upset about because he knows the only reason why he was there was to extort more money from him, which is his money. He goes, "You're not going to be taking my money. That's my money now." So he was upset. So our lawyer contacts the chief of police there. "What the hell are you doing messing with my money?" Right? That's not just my money, that's your money that he's messing with. Okay, so you better tell your people, you're the chief of police there, that you better not be letting that person in there and doing anything funny to our money. So I was the pearl. So now that you know that information, it's your best interest to know that you are the pearl also. If you have money, if you have golf bags, if you have credit cards, if you have an iPhone, if you have a nice camera, you are the pearl also. I mean, they even took our router out of our. They needed. I assume they wanted a fast, high-speed router also, so they took our router and on top of that as part of evidence. It's not part of evidence. It's part of their shop. They just wanted their shopping list that they wanted to get. Oh, I could use a router. My. So back to why this person is dead and why this one's alive. So let's let's go on into the rest of his story.
They demanded a ransom of around 160,000 US dollars. Jee's wife paid most of it over the course of several months.
So if you can see in the video over here, they've got his golf bags, and you've got the chief of police there in the background, all smiling, and the wife paid. So the difference here is the wife paid the 100,000, and I told my wife is that don't, because then if you do, then that will give them more reason to kill me. And in this situation, he was already dead the same day because they already got the money out of him.
Believing her husband was still alive. But the South Korean Foreign Ministry says Jee was actually killed on the day he was abducted, strangled at police headquarters in Manila, and his body burned at a crematorium owned by a former police officer.
So let's talk about here what happened. He got kidnapped and he was killed the same day. And now they have to get rid of the body. They have to get rid of the evidence. They have to get rid of any signs that they tortured him for the money. So they took his SUV and they took his ATM and was able to withdraw a lot of money from it. And then they killed him afterwards. So here's where it gets difficult, or it gets interesting, is during that, after he died in the police custody, he died in the national police headquarters themselves. They contacted another police person that owns a crematorium and said, "Hey, burn this body. This is we killed this person, we murdered it." I don't want to know why they call it kidnap and homicide. It's like kidnap and murder because it's they strangled him. This wasn't a situation where he was fighting, or he was in a situation where it was kind of an act of impulse. This was planned. What else were they going to do with him when they kidnap him and then they robbed him, and then what do you do with the person after that, after you kidnap and rob them? That's a loose end. So they have no choice but to kill him now to make, and this is where, to make matters worse, now that he's dead, they're not even thinking about the they're not even thinking about the fact that he's dead now. Okay, well, how are we going to get more money now? They're not thinking about the person is dead now that we got rid of his body and they flushed it down the toilet. How are we going to get more money now? So the next day or the next hour, they're like, okay, now he's dead, that's in the past, how are we going to make more money? Well, the wife still has more money, so we'll tell her. So like 2 or 3 weeks later, the wife says, okay, you're the police, if you say we'll pay you off. So that's the last thing you should ever do. There was a time where these things may be common, that if they get the money, then they get released. It's just kind of business as usual. But now, as this day and age, there's no such thing as kidnap for ransom now. It's like kidnap for murder is the new normal now. Because if you keep the person alive, then there's a chance that they'll testify. Then the police can't have that. It's better to take their chances and kill the person. So this is where it gets cloudy. It's like, well, we need more money. We just got a lot of money. We got a set of golf bags, and we need more money. So they contacted the wife. Now, you can't just cremate a person without anybody knowing. I mean, there was 8 people that was part of the operation, at least 8, and they have a supervisor, so everybody knows that he's dead. And then even then, they were all thinking of money. You would think that, like, if some supervisor is like, oh, well, you killed the person, well, somebody's gonna have to pay. Well, before we do that, let's make the wife pay also. So everybody, this is all the way up in the chain of command. They all know they just killed the Korean, but they weren't thinking about that the Korean was killed. They weren't thinking about losing their jobs. They weren't thinking about being prosecuted. Even though they just killed the Korean, they weren't thinking of that. What they were thinking was we need more, we want more money. Never mind that the person is dead. Never mind that the person died in the police custody. Never mind that we are the police ourselves. What we need is we're 8 people involved in here, and then whoever is directly involved, and whoever a dozen more people that are their supervisors that are indirectly involved. On top of that, anybody involved should burn for this. The unfortunate thing is there only one person who will probably go down, is probably the person who actually did the killing. And sad reality is that they could say that, oh, my boss told me, but hey, if a boss told you to jump off a cliff, would you do it? You can't, which is, you're not going to win that argument. The Nuremberg trials probably already made a point out of that you can't be killing people just because it was ordered. There's still what's called the humanity. And that's another point I wanted to make, is there is where is the humanity there? I mean, this is not just an isolated incident. There were like several people. One of them should have said, stop the madness here, we just killed an innocent person. And instead, they were thinking more money. So they were right. They got more money, and they didn't even think about, like, okay, how are we supposed to do this because the guy is dead? How don't you think that let's put this together now. Let's stop and think about this. I mean, okay, we're ransoming this guy, but he's already dead. Isn't that kind of important, that we should have a live person to be ransoming instead of a dead person? What are you trying to say? Because if they paid the money and then there's no ransom, then, I mean, if they paid the ransom and we didn't give them the person that they paid for, aren't we going to have any problems? And their normal response is, the non-humanity is, we don't have any problems. Remember what I said, the number 2 reason why? Okay, dead body, dead Korean, we just murdered them, no problem. Okay, that's a deadly side of the culture over here. So they're saying no problem. It's like, we got a dead body where we don't have a live person to ransom off. Here we go. Number 2 reason why everybody wants to be here in the Philippines. No problem. As you can see, this is where this no problem idea goes wrong. And it's like, not my problem. It's like, no problem, and it becomes, now they got the money. That's why you should never trust the police. You never because the person is probably already dead. And if you did give them the money, then they have no reason to keep him alive anymore. So the wife tried to do this the the business thing, or she put a down payment on it. Okay, here I'll give you 5 million now, and I'll give you 3 million. You can make the argument she should give him 3 million now and give him 5 million, but it's not going to work either way because the person is dead. It's just a simple detail in this kidnap for ransom that to keep the person alive to ransom him, but that's a detail that people will automatically overlook because there's no problem. Okay, now that we got the money, we have no person. What the hell we're gonna do? This person's gonna be upset. No problem. Okay, what about now? So the wife reported it and said, "Hey, like I paid this much, and they didn't give me my husband. The police didn't give me my husband. What the hell do we do?" So then it gets investigated. And then they're still saying no problem. And as you could see, it's ongoing. The case is ongoing. Maybe one person will go to jail for this, but other than that, it's still no problem. Okay, so that's what you have to think about if you're talking about how wonderful the Philippines over here, and this is also how terrible the Philippines over here, and it's also exasperated by the the world has been changed by the internet. But let's go on and finish the rest of the video.
His ashes were reportedly flushed down a toilet.
His ashes were flushed down the toilet. Now, I know I took a course in college about death, and what's important about death is we all need closure. And we go through these traditions like the every culture, every country has different traditions when they're dealing with death. And yeah, the tradition is after even cremation, there's a ceremony for the burial or how the ashes are given its final resting place for closure. What's sad is like, and that's just part of humanity. Let the people have their say their last goodbyes to their loved ones. That's the humanity of universal humanity. But in this situation, they didn't even bother with that because there is no humanity. They weren't even thinking about that this person has a wife and children and loved ones. At least, yeah, you killed them, but give them at least closure. That's the least you could do, and keep the ashes. But even that, they didn't want to keep. They flushed it down the toilet. They want no evidence whatsoever. So what's funny is the person who the police person that owned the crematorium, he took off to Canada, I think, so to avoid prosecution, because there's really no defense for him to be taking a body that's undocumented by family to be given by police. Okay, here we give you a body, you burn it. Well, there's got to be protocols. I can't just burn a body. That's just somebody's husband or that's somebody's father, that's somebody's friend, that's somebody's loved one. I could just burn him like that, and I just well, we're here's 30,000 pesos and a golf bag. Okay, here I'll do it right now. Kind of like me being a cheap whore. It's like I'll put it on my list. Here's 20 bucks. Okay, I'll do it right now. So knowing a crematorium has their processes, but if you give him 30,000 and a golf bag, then he's willing to bypass all those protocols and those legal processes before you can even get rid of the ashes. I mean, that's a big deal. You just don't dump it down the toilet. What is going through your mind? There's love. This person has a family that you can give it to. Don't just dump it down the toilet. What is there to gain by dumping it down the toilet? Except to show that there is no humanity. So the person who owns a crematorium took off, and you can pretty much surmise or assume that this is a traditional practice, because if the police has a high body count that they're killing or they're extorting or they're getting money out of, and they have to get rid of the evidence and they have to get rid of the bodies, then of course this crematorium is convenient. We're like, okay, wow, we seem to be getting rid of a lot of bodies, so it's best for us to be in the business of the crematorium, and our best customers are the police. As you can see, just burning a body, they get probably a $50,000 set of golf clubs and 30,000 pesos on top of that. So let's continue the video here.
Police officer Ricky Santa Isabel surrendered to investigators last
So
week.
this bastard over here is the supposedly the person that put his hands and strangled our Korean businessman. And if you look into his background or look into his history, that he has several businesses that he funnels or launders the money, this illegally robbed money from, and then he funnels it into his wife's business, which is they own like a lottery chain or kind of like a lottery where the scratcher things, and they own several other businesses. I'm sure they own a cafeteria, a food business, but that's where they launder the money through.
saying his superior
So his defense was he was ordered to kill, he was ordered to kidnap, he was ordered to kill, and of course their superior or their chief or his boss is going to deny it and saying, why would I order him to do something illegal, which is true. If you did it and you did it because of your lack of humanity, where it becomes where the money, this Korean is not a person, is not a human being. To him, he's just dollars and cents to launder through his wife's business, and he's nothing but an SUV. So that's why I wanted to probably do a video about Brain Dead's SUV, not to let the police know, but to let them know that that's what they'll do to people with SUVs. The fortunate thing for me is they didn't take my SUV. They took the Mitsubishi Mirage, which was brand new at the time. But if I think about it, the Fortuner would be more valuable to us than the Mirage. The Mirage is a cheap, disposable economy car versus the Fortuner. It's a classic Toyota SUV. I mean, 10, 20 years from now, I mean, it's already a classic now. Imagine if it becomes more rare, it's going to become more classic because it was the first generation of the Fortuner line. But anyway, probably make a video about Brain Dead's SUV so he could see that he can die for his SUV also. So not maybe not to number one, not to be as flashy next time, and number two, to keep it in mind that the possibility is there, because if you know the possibility there is there, then you have a better chance of avoiding it. So that's actually me helping our brain dead friend.
superiors told him he was conducting a legitimate police operation at G's house, and he had no idea the arrest warrant was fraudulent.
So just like my situation, the search warrant was illegal or fraudulent because it was based on lies, and the proof in that is the demur. So same thing, and the point to take home here is they can pretty much make up and fabricate anything. So whatever paperwork it is, it could be just be based on lies that the laws they could easily get around.
The officers involved were from a special task force assigned solely to combat illegal drugs.
They took him from Colocan, brought them inside Camp Crame, and that's where they killed him. If I could just melt in shame, I would. I am deeply ashamed.
Yeah, corruption always starts from the top, and the money always finds its way to the. They might not be illicitly involved, but for you to keep your job, you have to kick back. It's all about. Yeah, when it comes to corruption, there's nothing more corrupt over here than the police. We're talking about kickbacks and shakedowns. So obviously, the person they're given, they've been conducting these secret jails, these kind of kidnaps for ransoms, and you can't tell me that if you're the person in charge that you don't know anything about it or you can't do anything about it, because that's why you're in charge. That's why you people do people say people follow what you say because you're the one in commander in chief. And if they're doing something, that means you gave them permission or you gave them orders to do it. And why would they be? This is how the rank of command or the chain of command. This is how the system works. We have that's what to keep people in line. And if they're doing something, and then what is it that why are they doing it, and what is it? What is your benefit out of it? So obviously, that 5 million, there's going to be plenty of it to go around, and they can continue doing it just as long as they keep spreading the money around. In this situation, they didn't consider the fact that there were repercussions that we just ransomed off a dead body, and they just said no problem.
The South Korean Foreign Ministry is demanding answers from President Rodrigo Duterte's government.
We are shocked because We've always looked at our police as one of the pillars of our justice system. But I believe that
One of the pillars of our justice system. What a joke. They are. It's it's a farce. It's hard to explain how the the foxes are in charge of the hen house over here. If you have to be the what if the police are assigned, or it's their duty to protect you from the criminals, then if the police are the criminals themselves, then who is going to protect you from the people that are supposed to be assigned to protect you? Just like the cybercrime police committing cybercrime against me, so their plan was to put me in jail for the rest of my life. Who do I report the the cybercrime to when it's a cybercrime themselves? They're committing the cybercrime, and of course, you can come after me. I've got the evidence to prove it. So the point is here that when this person is saying is, of course, this back to a saving face. But we all know the reality is that the system is corrupt. Shakedowns and kickbacks, ransom for no longer for kidnap for ransom, but kidnap for murder now.
this is not really the whole scenario for the whole PNP. But it takes
The whole scenario, the fact that we even have to be thinking about it as a scenario, and that it's happening on a regular basis. And like I said, this is not just the example. This is just the only ones that we know about. And there's another in that same Friendship Plaza. 3 Koreans. I don't understand why Koreans would still go here after that. You would think after one was killed and 3 were kidnapped, you would think they would all leave the country. And then probably you could argue the same thing for you, Bebels. Only why are you still in the country? I'll try to answer that. One of them is because I don't have any reason to. I'm innocent, and I don't have any reason to leave the country. And number two is I'm not Korean, so I can go back to Korea, and there's probably nothing for me in Korea. They do, and this person has been living here in 10 years, so this is his life now here, and I've been living here since 2008. We're talking about 13, 14 years. So it's not just easy to pick up after you've laid down roots over here, and that I still have. And probably the other reason is that I'm the only person that you can trust here in the Philippines. Who are you going to trust? The people here, the police here, the government here. The reason why you're here listening to this is because I'm the only one that's going to give you the truth. And I'm only the one that the person you can trust when it comes to experience and information here in the Philippines. While everybody else is selling you a book or a bachelor course. But I digress. Let's continue.
only a few rotten eggs to spoil the lot.
Since President Duterte
Few rotten eggs to spoil the lot. Okay. And probably the best solution for this is whoever is there's not okay, one thing is to put the person in jail for the rest of his life for the one who actually committed the murder. But the everybody who is supervising him or was in charge has to be fired from being a policeman and relieved of all their pensions to make an example to the next one. Because if you don't do that, and if it's just business as usual, no problem, then guess what? It'll happen again and again and again because the people in charge, the one that allowed it or ordered it or receiving the benefits or the kickbacks from these kind of illegal criminal operations, are going to need money again, and they're going to do it again, and they're going to do it with a different person, have another fall guy, do it again to the next person. The important thing now is probably to accept the reality that there's nothing you can do about it. The most important thing now is what are you going to do about it now that you have the information? How are you going to apply it? I'm not saying don't come here to the Philippines altogether, but what do you do to make sure that you don't end up dead? Because there's going to be more people dying. I'll give you an example of you don't have to take my word for it. The police are killing so many people, so many drug addicts that they're running out of drug addicts to kill that they're killing each other now. The police are killing each other. Other police. Remember the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency and the Philippine National Police got involved in a 2 hour shootout where two police, one person in each, like I think four people died altogether, two police assets, and police assets die all the time. They after they use them, they kill them. And we all know that. And why do you want to become an asset? Well, you have no choice. You're just buying time, and you're just trying to get one more day or one more hour, because if you die tomorrow, then at least no problem. All your problems are solved. So death over here is not something that people would think that that it's a bad thing. It's just a normal thing. And for you and I, who value human lives because of our humanity, of course we look at it differently. But when the police and when the police assets look at their lives and other people's lives, it's completely worthless. And what really matters is what is the golf clubs, the iPhones, the expensive cameras, the expensive cars, brain dead's SUV. That's more important when there is no humanity. So the wife filed a report. Let's even look at the. I pulled up a news article over here just in case, just to get more details. So let's just talk about it here. A Korean businessman, and then I'll just wrap this up. So Korean businessman killed inside the Philippine National Headquarters. So they couldn't do it in a ditch somewhere. They did it in the actual headquarters themselves. The head of Hanjin executive. So he doesn't need to deal drugs. He's an executive of Hanjin. I think that's a big company over here. That's a big Korean company. Hanjin. I didn't even know that. So the head of Hanjin executive, Jee Ick Joo, was covered with packaging tape and then strangled while inside Camp Krame. This is the actual where they did the rape exam for my complainants is Camp Krame. They have a police doctor over there to inspect vaginas for evidence of rape. The headquarters of the Philippine National Police, a Department of Justice resolution revealed. Gears senior police officer Roy Villegas gave the details about how G was killed. Korean business inside car near PNP Chief Bato's office. Bato, in his affidavit, here let me scroll down. In his affidavit, he said while inside Camp Krami, he heard SPO3 Ricky Santa Isabel talking to a certain his boss, Dim Lao, where he overheard him say, "Yes, sir. Ang alam ko, kilala nyo ang mga tao ito dahil ang pakakailam ko ay sanction nyo dito, sir. Sir, I thought you knew these people and you authorized this operation." So he's talking about his accomplices. Villegas further said that Santa Isabel was the one who brought the packaging tape and surgical gloves and ordered him to cover the head of the victim and follow him instead of Dum Lao. He finally recalls seeing respondent Isabel strangling and killing the victim. After the victim was killed, Villegas said to Santa Isabel, called a certain Ding, who agreed to receive the body in exchange for 30,000 pesos and a golf set. There you go. That's how much your life is worth. 30,000 pesos and a golf set, even if you're an executive of Hanjin. Yeah, I think I've seen their trucks around now that I think about it. Then the body was brought to the funeral home in Caloocan. He joined the operation as he believed that the operation is illegitimate. So, of course, they know this is a kidnap for a ransom. Police operators, that's why they have secret jails. They should have put him in a secret jail instead of killing him. But we weren't there. So against the herein victim who, according to respondents, is involved in illegal drugs. So that's all they have to do. It's like, you're involved in illegal drugs, bam, you're kidnapped for murder. He reiterates that he thought that all along that why would he need to sell drugs? He's got a very successful business. Along the, of course, there's no evidence of it whatsoever. So you can't be saying that the person's dead and it's like, oh, he's involved in drugs and with no evidence of it. And police, you just say that you killed him over the money in his SUV. And the I think the and police I think the maid also had something to do, operations diversion and illegitimate police operation. When he realized it, he did not resist and instead he obeyed the instruction of the respondent. So the police are saying, okay, this is my excuse why I went along. Once I choose something that was wrong, I just went along with it. So this is again makisama. That's the culture over here. Marunong ka makisama. Okay, if I'm killing somebody, you're killing them also. So he was a so Isabel, he followed him for fear of his life and of his family, is what he said. Because as you can see, Santa Isabel over here just murdered somebody in front of you, and he said to you, it's like I'm going to do the same thing to you and your family if you do the same thing what Paras did to me, what the colonel did to me while I was in prison. The sad part is imagine going through that. Imagine going back in prison thinking that like how am I gonna sleep that night? Imagine the terror, the anxiety and the panic attacks I was going through my mind until I saw I thought that when even when I was in prison, when am I? What happens if my wife doesn't visit anymore? Even if my wife was 5 minutes late when she came and visited me, that was like the first thought that would always come to my mind. Imagine the kind of horror that I had to go through just because these people don't have credit cards to use. So he's imagine the horror that you're gonna killing somebody is one thing, but horrifying them like that, putting them in prison, and then having that person think about like the safety of his family, even if my wife doesn't show up on time, like she said she was going to be, and or she doesn't show up. So for imagine for hours those those days where the whole day I just hope they're not dead. I just hope Paris didn't kill them. Same thing with this Santa Isabel. So you're not gonna know what that's like until you experience it yourself, because these people are murderers, and you need to know that they're murderers, and they'll kill you for nothing, even if it's just for just your golf bags. So G together with G together with his house help Marissa der Morquicho was taken by the two unidentified men from their house in Pampanga on October 8, 2016. In her testimony, the maid Morquicho said the men dragged G from the house into his Explorer. She said they ordered her to accompany them to G's room. After helping the police officers, she said they ordered her to board the same car. And so when they were there, that's when they stole jewelry, passports, valuable items. She said that's like the search warrant. They said they had a search warrant also. Same thing with mine. They're just there to look for valuable items, which included the boss's jewelry. So anything they could stick in their pockets, and they'll just say, "Well, we don't know anything about it. It's not documented." She said while they're on their way to Manila, the men informed them that her boss was involved in illegal drug activities. From Pampanga, she said they passed the Quezon City Circle until they reached the place where several men were wearing T-shirts saying police. Marquicho said that after they arrived at Camp Crame, she was transferred to Santa Isabel's car and released the next day at Camp Crame. This is why I'm thinking that she should have been dead also. The fact that she's not dead means that she might have been involved because she was only a maid for 2 days. So she might have been helping them find the valuables in his place also. So I highly suspect that she was part of this kidnap and she was the informant. And it's just a coincidence that 2 days she was just a new maid and she was just 2 days and then all of a sudden he's dead. So it's just too coincidental. The odds are just very high that she was involved in his in the, through the planning as the eyes and ears of the kidnappers of the police. Villegas said that Santa told them, "Basta sama-sama tayo dito. We're all in this together." So he's telling the others, so everybody keep their mouths shut. Uh, oops. So G's wife then in her affidavit said she paid the 5 million and said and then so they didn't present the proof of life, and then she broke the cardinal rule of never pay for proof of life. I, yes, it's in her defense. It's easy to break these laws because that's her husband, that's her loved one, that's the one person that's the father of her children. Of course, she's gonna do stupid things when she. I mean, it's not stupid things. She's gonna do irrational things. That if you tell her this is gonna get your husband back, then she'll do it. And unfortunately, it was her decision. But it's no matter how much money, it's not gonna bring him back to life. So it would have been better. She took a gamble and she lost, and that was not the only thing that she lost. Back again because there is no humanity. Kidnapping for ransom with murder, not homicide. The DOJ and the resolution said that Santa Isabel, Villegas, Ramon, and several others should be prosecuted for the crime. They were indicted for failing to submit evidence denying their participation in the crime. The DOJ said the respondents failed to counter the evidence. Again, okay. Until now, the contrary evidence was filed. As the victim was killed during the course of his detention, respondents acted, people get killed in detention all the time. I'm just, like I said, it's not my time. That's why I wasn't killed also. The special complex crime of kidnapping for ransom with homicide is committed when the person was killed on occasion in connection in the course of subpoena detention, regardless of whether the killing was purposely sought or was merely okay. Person of interest was the person owner of the crematorium where Jee's body was taken, has left the country. So that's pretty much it. The South Korean government is upset. And what's going to happen? Like I said, this case is ongoing, and one person is going to take the fall, and it's business as usual. And people are going to be kidnapped and killed and murdered for money, as long as the people over here, especially the police, are poor, especially now, need money. So, what does that have to do with you? So, like I said, what is it? What is the information over here that you need to accept? There is no humanity. There is corruption. There is systemic corruption. I guess what we have to do now is, what are you going to do about it? And then probably the question I'm asking is, what am I doing about it? Well, here I am. Part of what I'm doing is sharing the experience, so you'll know also. So not only am I sharing other people's experience, so I'm sharing my own personal experience, which is I'm an expert on. And what I'm going to do about it. So that's the step one, and we'll see what to do about it next. And probably next question is what to do about it. What about Bebots only in general? Well, first of all, like I said, there's still a lot of unfinished business with the police. I also have a lot of unfinished business with the vloggers, and I've kind of dipped my toe. Also, I'm seeing a few friends again. Because after years in prison, they wanted to get caught up. So we're caught up. I would like to see and make new friends on a more regular basis again. Simply the fact that as long as we're not doing anything illegal, then you shouldn't have any problem with it. And the fact that 3 judges said that I'm not doing anything illegal should be enough evidence or proof to say that as long as we're not doing anything illegal or not hurting anybody, then we should be free to enjoy our activities in our lives and with our friends. The only problem comes in is when the police, criminal, tax collectors came in, and it's like, hey, if you're gonna play, we also want to get paid. And the sad part is that normally is a normal transaction, quid pro quo. I get something, you get something. You scratch my back. But in this situation, when we have no humanity, there is no you scratch my back, I scratch yours. I just kill you and scare your wife into giving me money, even though you're dead. And because it's not my time, and because of those other factors that came in, I was worth more alive than dead. I'm here vlogging and sharing the same experience. And the reason why is because I don't want you to go through it. Even the cult followers. I might, I might wish your cult leader and cult follower to be in jail for 2 years and $2,000, like me, for actually breaking the law, versus an innocent man like me. So you'll know what the experience is like. And these people lack experiences. Well, they do have experiences, But even the bad experiences like I have, it doesn't mean that you should become a bad person yourself. But it does take strength and courage for me to save other people, to make sure that this doesn't happen to them. Well, anyway, this video has gone long enough. Let me know what you think. If you agree, disagree, what do you think about the humanity? What do you think about what they did? What was going through their mind? What was going through your mind? I already explained it, how it's because it's no problem. He's dead, it's no problem. What our problem is how we're going to get more money, and they'll do it even if it means taking your life. That's what you have to keep in mind. Just like this Korean businessman, just like the golf tourists, just like me. And if you're just like me, innocent, but have access, but have something they have, then you might end up just like me or just like him. And because the reasons why the police are doing this are still there, and their means, their methods, their motives still exist and growing. The world is not getting any better. That's what you have to keep in mind. And if you want to stay alive, then you better apply all the information that I have just given you, experiences I've shared with you, and you better apply it so you don't end up like me or dead like G. Anyway, this is Bebot's Only. Thanks for watching.